Hi everybody, and welcome to week 3 of online learning. So this week we are going to be working on making inferences and using text evidence to support it. Good news is that's something we've been doing all year. If you remember me talking about the ACE short answers, what do you think that is? Answer the question, cite the evidence, and explain your answer. So that's exactly what we're going to be talking about this week. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask you guys, how are you doing? I miss you. I don't know about you, but I'm pretty bored. I've watched everything on Netflix. I've read all the books in my house. It feels like I've ordered puzzles and paint by number kits, but they're not here yet. So I'm just going a little stir crazy being stuck at home without you. So I was wondering, is there anything that you guys are doing that's interesting and keeping you occupied right now? I saw some of my friends set up like a mini golf course in their house. Some people are doing like circuses with their dogs. Like there's a bunch of crazy stuff going on right now. So if there's anything fun and exciting that your family's doing, I'd love to see it. I'd love to hear about it. I'm going to put something on Flipgrid asking you guys to show me how you stay entertained during this weird, crazy quarantine time. So I really encourage you to participate in that because that'd be an easy, fun way to just get in some extra credit and to communicate with your peers because I know you miss each other. Everyone in the chat every morning is always saying, oh, I'm so happy, even though it's 8:30 in the morning. We always have a small little group. And they're always saying, oh, it's so happy that I'm with my friends and I get to talk to them and they're asking me to video chat with them. So we're going to have a video chat again this Wednesday, but in the afternoon because I think 8:30 is a little early for some of us. And so I'm thinking maybe around like 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we'll do a video chat. But you'll get an email to invite you, and then also I'll post it in the Google Classroom as well. A lot of you guys have been asking me about grades as well. Teachers are kind of being updated along with everybody else as far as what grades are going to look like, but essentially we're using the courseware Edmentum courseware, not exact path. So if you're on exact path, make sure you're actually on the correct thing that you're going to earn credit for. We're using that to make your grades for the 4th 9 weeks. So let's really try and take this seriously. Something I've noticed with a lot of us is that we're rushing through the lessons and just trying to get the basic mastery test done. But what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start locking the tests until Thursday, and I'm not going to unlock it if I don't feel like you've completed the lesson in a thorough and meaningful way. Because, I mean, it's a waste of time if you're just going through clicking everything and not really learning and not really experiencing what it's asking you to do. So you're not really learning. So I'm not going to unlock the test if we're not taking it seriously to begin with. But most of us are doing a really good job. I'm proud of everyone who's been logging online and getting up every morning and participating and getting their work done. I know it's hard to stay motivated right now. It's hard for me to stay motivated right now because we're stuck at home, and home is where we relax. And so it's weird to have to start doing work at home. So I understand that. I have sympathy for that too. So all I'm asking is that we take it a little bit more seriously. Some of you guys are only spending 15 minutes on the lesson, and I can tell you that's definitely not enough time to get anything out of it or to produce any meaningful answers either. So take the question seriously. Take your time. I know I've said that in every video. Take your time through this. And like I said, I'm not going to unlock the tests for anybody until probably Thursday or Friday. And you have to prove to me that you really know the material by doing the lessons and answering the questions in a meaningful way. Because I know it's weird. I know everything's crazy right now, but next year you guys are going to be high schoolers. When we go back to school, you're probably going to be in 9th grade, and they're going to expect 9th grade level thinking out of you. So we're just trying to make sure that you don't lose any of that in between now and when you go back to school, whenever that might be. So we just want to make sure that you're learning and that you're growing and that you're going to be prepared for the next grade, because that's our job and that's what we care about as educators. So I know, but you can do it. You're smart. You got this. Just slow down. Okay. This week's lesson. Why do we care about making inferences at all? Like, why is that important? Why do we even care about trying to guess what's going on in the story? I can hear some of you already saying, well, I don't. But here's the deal. It helps us understand what we're reading, and it helps us make connections, which is going to help us remember what we're reading as well. So when we're reading, there are some strategies that can help you kind of understand the material and make those guesses as you're reading, and then using the evidence from the text to back it up to be like, okay, here's what I guessed and here's the proof that backs it up. First strategy is, as you're reading, make predictions. Think about, okay, what's going to happen next? What can I assume about this character? What can I assume about where they're living based on what I'm already reading? So make those guesses in your head. Predictions don't have to be 100% accurate. You can say, oh, I think they live here. And then you'd be like, well, guess that's wrong. But what you're doing is you're using the evidence in the text to prove your guess right or wrong. So you're already making a connection and an inference there. And then of course, if you're getting stuck or you're confused, you can always reread the text. Go back, and if you don't understand a word or you have no idea, you just read a whole paragraph and you don't even know what just happened, go back and reread it. Take notes, look up vocabulary words you don't understand. Like I said, I know the texts in your online courses are a little bit harder than what we would read in class, but I think this is a great example of why we need to push ourselves to be better readers. Because if we're stuck reading the same grade level book all the time, we're not growing. So this is a great example of how you can grow to be a better reader. So if you don't understand something, look it up. There's tools in your courseware, or there's tools on the internet. There's tools everywhere. So ask for help when you need it, reread when you need to, use that as a strategy. So ask questions as you read, make predictions as you read, and then reread if you need to. It's totally fine. No one's judging you. Another strategy is to look for key details. So when you're reading, you're going to notice that there's patterns, right? So we've talked about text structures. We've talked about cause and effect. We've talked about notice and note strategies. We've talked about when things get repeated. What does that mean? So those are all patterns that you can look for in the text that are going to help you understand why it was written and kind of help you make inferences moving forward. So if you're noticing it's a cause and effect relationship, what can you infer after reading that? Can you infer that the cause was good or bad? Can you infer that the effect was helpful or not? And so think about the structure of what you're reading, and that can kind of help you make inferences as well. Look at the title. If you are reading and all of a sudden you see a quote in the text that is related to the title, doesn't that kind of tell you a little bit about why it might have been named that in the first place? Like, you can make an inference right there. So for instance, if you're reading The Fault in Our Stars and all of a sudden you see the line where it talks about the fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars but in our hearts, you can say, oh, I can make that connection. So this quote must be important to the overall story and the overall message of the book, so I can infer this about the text. Make sure that you're using what's given to you as kind of clues along the way for the inferences that you can make. And another strategy, look at your background knowledge. You guys are so smart. You consume so much media. I know you, like me, have watched everything on Netflix and Hulu and Disney Plus. And so you guys have all these stories inside of you that you've consumed already, but maybe just not in the traditional reading format. So, and some of you read all the time, so you have even more. But use that background knowledge that you have. Every song that you've listened to is like a little mini story. Every TV show, every movie that you've watched, those are all experiences that we've kind of put inside of us, so that way we can, when we hear something new, we can kind of compare and contrast it with what we've already digested. So for instance, if I'm reading about a character that's meeting a new friend for the first time, I know how I would react, and I know how all these other stories have reacted to meeting someone new. And usually it's awkward and weird and it's exciting. And so look at the characters in your story that you're reading and ask yourself, are they reacting in the way that I would expect them to, or are they reacting in a totally different way? And what does that say about them? What can I infer about the character based on how they're reacting right now? Because if there's like this really cool, confident dude who's meeting this new person, that's gonna tell me a lot about his character, right? Or if I'm reading about someone that's being broken up with and they just laugh, like, that's totally out of the blue and unexpected. So what can I infer about that person and who they are on the inside as a character? And so those are just some examples of how you can use background knowledge and all of the other forms of media and story that you've digested and kind of turn that into an inference moving forward. So background knowledge is really important. So we've talked about strategies that help you with making inferences, but now we need to talk about finding the evidence that proves your point. Essentially, you just want to find the evidence in the text that made you think that way. So it's not a trick. We're not trying to have you pull out the most meaningful, exciting quote in the whole world from the text. We just want to see your proof as to how you started to think this way about the character. So for instance, if you're reading about someone who's feeling like a stranger or an outsider, where in the text, what words can you look for that made you start to think, okay, this character does feel like a stranger? And so find that in the text and use that as your evidence. So for instance, if we're using that answer, cite, explain model, you would say, this character feels like an outsider because in the text it states, and then you would find your quote, and then you might say, this evidence shows, and then you would show me what that quote says about the character. So it's all the same things that we've been doing all year. It's worded a little bit differently than the way that I've worded it, but it's essentially the same information. So this lesson isn't super hard. You guys know how to do this. Just don't be pulling random quotes out of the text and saying, oh, this proves my point, if it really doesn't. So you do have to be able to back up what you're saying. Again, use the reading strategies that we talked about. Ask questions as you read, make predictions, see if you're right or wrong, notice those structures as you're reading. Are they telling you anything about what you can expect from the text? And then once you've done all that, use your background knowledge. You have so many stories inside of you that you've consumed over time. Use that to help you understand what this character or what this narrator might be going through. And remember, this can work for fiction and nonfiction. So I know I say character a lot, but that can work for nonfiction as well. And finally, if you're being asked to provide evidence for your inferences, just go back in the text and find the quote that means the most and relates to what you're saying about the text itself. So again, don't just pull out some random quote if it doesn't have anything to do with what you're actually saying. If you guys have any questions, you know that we have daily chats on Edmentum from 8:30 to 9:30 every day. You can always reach me by email. Remember, I'm putting some stuff up on Flipgrid. That'd be a really easy way to get extra credit, just help boost your grades if maybe you're not getting the scores that you want on your tests. I know some of us are really worried about our grades, so we're trying everything that we can to get it boosted up. So these are just easy, fun ways to interact with everybody and just kind of have something creative and fun to do to break the boredom right now. So as usual, if you're reading anything interesting or listening to an interesting podcast or watching interesting TV, please talk to me about it. I love hearing you guys' opinions and recommendations because it helps me make better recommendations for you guys as well. So I hope you're staying safe. I hope you're staying healthy. I hope you're taking care of yourself mentally and physically. You guys are so amazing, and I look forward to talking with you on Wednesday in our video chat. All right, guys, see you later.